All right, hello, all you G.I. Joe classified collectors out there who might be tuning into this internet broadcast. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a bit and kept kicking the can down the road, but I'm finally here. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I believe we will hear about the next G.I. Joe HasLab fairly soon, within the next, couple months or so, what have you, this spring, I'm thinking. And who knows, we might get a few little tidbits in the upcoming live stream. I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday, Valentine's Day, whatever. Um, so in this video, I want to talk a little bit about HasLab stuff, specifically a few possible options here, and give the pros and cons to these possibilities. These aren't my picks for HasLab. There was recently a vote on the His Tank forums, which I'll pop into every now and again just to see what those folks are talking about. And they had a vote about what they think should the next HasLab project be, what have you. And they came up with 5 options. I happen to think that the 5 options that they came up with are all decent options. They all have a, what I would think, solid likelihood, or I think that they all have, the possibility of being given the HasLab treatment. So in this video, I'm going to run down those 5 possible HasLab projects and basically tell you all what I think the pros for that particular project would be and what I think the cons for that particular project would be. All right, so let's just jump into it. And again, I pulled this vote from the His Tank forums, which, it's not the entire community, but I think it is a data point worth looking at because clearly these folks are super into the hobby. They love the franchise, and I don't know. I think their thoughts might be representative of a larger sampling. Maybe, who knows? I'm not a I'm not a statistician or whatever. Okay, let's just jump into it. Enough preamble. All right, number 5, the Vamp. Okay, so what are the pros to the Vamp? In my opinion, this might be one of the most recognizable classic G.I. Joe vehicles. So that's a pro in the pro category. Most of us collectors would really want the Vamp on our shelves. So that's number 1. Really recognizable. I think most of us would like to see it. 2, the Vamp gives an opportunity for more of the original 13 characters. It would definitely come with Clutch, and I think a lot of us would like to see more of these original 13 guys. And it could also come up with other figures as unlock tiers. Like I could picture maybe, for example, base offering Vamp and Clutch, and then maybe you have Zap and Short Fuse or something as unlock tiers. Who knows? Something like that. 3, if they do the Vamp, I think it's possible, and I would think advisable, that they include a HAL laser or MMS or something along those lines. And I think that should be base offering, because in my opinion, the Vamp isn't a very big vehicle, right? I feel like it's more medium sized. So let's go now into the cons. So, like I was just saying, I don't necessarily believe that this vehicle needs to be a HasLab. I think it's somewhat smaller than the His Tank, and I think it would be better suited as maybe a fan channel release or something like that. Maybe we won't see it on store shelves, but I feel like a lot of folks in the collector community would pick one up if it was on Hasbro Pulse with clutch, just the vehicle and the driver. If we get a Vamp, we would also like to see a Stinger at some point, and there are several variations of that body, that vehicle body, that's recycled throughout the lifespan of the franchise. So if we got the Vamp, a lot of us are going to want to see at least the Stinger. And if we're doing the Vamp as a HasLab, does that mean we also have to do the Stinger as a HasLab? Or do we do one as a HasLab and do a less HasLab-y version of the other? I don't know. I feel like, again, we're going to want we are going to want to see multiple versions of this vehicle body style. And with that said, I think it's better that they do it as a regular release. That way they can just replicate that to their leisure, and we could eventually see the Vamp Mark II, the Stinger, etc. Whereas if they are reserving the Vamp for HasLab and they do like one of those a year, I really feel like that limits the types of vehicles we'll see in the line ultimately. Okay, last, number 3. There could be a danger of this going the way of the Engine of Vengeance, where they put out a vehicle, a car for their HasLab, and it's just underwhelming, or as the buyer, the fan, the collector, whatever, it doesn't look like it's worth the price. And personally, I don't really want to see the G.I. Joe classified line go down that road, because I do not really believe that G.I. Joe Classified has the foundational strength as something like Black Series or Marvel Legends, where they could weather a failed HasLab campaign. I guess to put that another way, I think that with G.I. Joe Classified being a newer line, I don't know this for certain, but I would guess that there are probably less folks collecting G.I. Joe than Marvel Legends and maybe Black Series. So I feel like a failed HasLab, or even a HasLab that maybe doesn't meet all the goals, or there's some kind of contentious fight between the fan base and the company, whatever, I feel like that would be more damaging to this brand than it would be to Marvel Legends or Black Series. Okay, and those are my cons for the Vamp. Moving right along. Number 4, the Mobat. Pros. The Mobat does seem like a good counterbalance to the Hiss tank. I think a lot of folks would like to see parity with these HasLab projects and have things to like face off each other on their shelves. And I kind of do feel like a Mobat is a decent counterweight to the Hiss tank, tank on tank. Similar in size. I feel like with the Mobat, it's hard to catch lightning in a bottle, so I don't know if they would be able to replicate the excitement that we saw with the Hiss tank, but they could certainly replicate at least the campaign, meaning it'll look the same as far as similar in unlocked tiers, amount of figures you ultimately get if everything's unlocked, etc. Okay, number 2. This is another great opportunity for more OG-13 characters. Steeler, again, I could see like a Zap coming along with the Mobat, something like that. It's also an opportunity for more green shirts. I could see them tossed in a green shirt or two with a HasLab Mobat project. And this is my third point. It's the first G.I. Joe tank, and I think these OG vehicles are perfect for this line right now. So you have your original Hiss tank, and then you have that original Joe tank. I think that looks great on the shelf, or would look great on the shelf. For my fourth point on this one for a pro is I'm not sure that a lot of people would use it more than once, but it is a great opportunity to incorporate like a remote control feature. Like I just said, I don't know that a lot of us would be playing it very frequently, driving our probably $300 Mobats around the house, but it would be a cool feature. And I think that when we first open it up, we probably would get a kick out of remote control driving the Mobat around with Steeler hanging out inside driving. Okay. Mobat cons. I have 3 of them. So going with the classic design, assuming they go classic with it, it only has a seat for 1 figure. I think that is a 1 in the negative column. I feel like these HasLabs, you want it to be designed to hold multiple classified figures. Now, with the Mobat, you can sort out ways to have more than 1 figure on it, or that it would make more sense to have more than 1 figure in the display with it, what have you. But I really feel like a good, solid HasLab would have a HasLab vehicle would have at least a couple seats, something that opens up, you can put stuff inside, stuff like that. So I feel like the original design is a little bit limiting. It could, number 2, it could be rather large, maybe slightly bigger than the His tank, and with a possible remote control feature, I could see them pushing the limit on the price tag. I could see them playing around and making this one a little bit more expensive than the His tank, which I don't think would go over very well, particularly with the past year's history of price increases. I think that we're likely to see the HasLab be a little bit more expensive regardless this time around, but I would really like to, I would really like the next one to be equal to the last one in size, weight, features, etc., to try to get that price point pretty close. Because I don't know about you, but for me, $300 for the His tank was already kind of tough. I mean, I went for it, but I wasn't thrilled to spend that money. So for this one, or the next one, and really, I guess any of these, to me, I am not really trying to go higher than that $300. And if we could get it down a little bit, I would be happy about that too. So rambling on a little bit on this one, but I just feel like there's a good shot that if they went all out on this and it was big and beefy, we might be looking more at like 350, something like that. And I feel like that's where people, me anyway, and I'm sure others with my same mindset, might be a little, hesitant at that point. Okay, last con for the Mobat. Though it is a classic and it is a good counter to the His tank, in my opinion, I could see an argument that it's also a little basic. It really looks like a normal tank, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I think it would look cool on my shelf. I would be pretty happy with it, I think. But I could also see the argument that, this is a HasLab. It's supposed to be, something big and awesome and kind of over the top a little bit, I think. So shouldn't we get something that's a little more futuristic or a little more, I don't know, something that pops on the shelf? I don't know. So there's another possible con, in my opinion. Number 3, the Thunder Machine. Now, this is one that I would really like to see in one way or the other, but let's go through. I have 3 pros for this one. Pro, number 1, more Dreadnoks. If we're getting the Thunder Machine, particularly as part of a HasLab, well then more Dreadnoks, and in my opinion, the more Dreadnoks, the merrier. They look great, a lot of cool characters, so I say let's go ahead and do as many as we can get. So with that, the Thunder Machine would be a pretty cool selection. Number 2, it's just a plain, cool looking Mad Max style, awesome vehicle. Machine guns, everything. The big old jet rocket on the back end. It just looks awesome. The original version looks awesome, and I can't imagine them doing a HasLab and it not being just spectacular. Third, and this is more my personal interest, but it is my list, so, and I'm sure others will agree with me. The Thunder Machine is high on my list of things I'd like to see. So I guess this is really closely related to number 2. Maybe these bleed together. But I'm sure I'm not alone with having this vehicle on my list as like a top tier. Like, this is something I want. And I think a lot of folks would be happy to see it happen. So I think that would be a pro. Okay, con time. Number 1. And I only have one con for the HasLab. Or for the Thunder Machine as a HasLab. I just don't really think it's time yet. In my opinion, it's time for a G.I. Joe team bigger vehicle. Now, if they wanted to do the Thunder Machine in 2024, perfect, awesome, I'm all for it. But I really think it is time for a Joe vehicle, Mobat, Vamp, whatever, something else. But I think we just got a villain vehicle HasLab, and it's time for the heroes. This is number 2 on the list. So the penultimate entry, the Dragonfly. Now, number 1, pro. This is another iconic vehicle, and it has tons of potential with the HasLab treatment, I think. The original toy was great. It had a ton of features, and the HasLab treatment, I just think, will take that to a whole other level. Number 2, we'll get Wild Bill, and I think it would be great to get Wild Bill with his iconic vehicle and not as a single release figure. And if the rumors we heard a little while back are true, we'll also get Airborne, who is another great G.I. Joe character from the second wave of the Real American Hero line. You can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's correct. So, yeah, Wild Bill, Airborne, and it would be a significant flying vehicle. And really, if we don't count the jetpacks that are supposed to come with the Steel Core, that'll be our first flying vehicle for the G.I. Joe team, and a great way to not only defend against those his tanks, but our trouble bubbles and air chariots and all that machinery that Cobra has on their side. Okay, third, pro, and this is more about what I want, but again, I think a lot of folks probably are on the same page. The Dragonfly would actually be my number 1 choice, personally. So for me, that is a win in the pro column for the HasLab. I really want to see it, and if they do it, that would be good. So that's point number 3 for why doing the Dragonfly as the next HasLab would be a pro. And I think a lot of folks also have the Dragonfly pretty high, if not at number 1 on their list. Okay, so moving on to the cons for the Dragonfly, and I have 2 here. For me, I'm already in this spot where I'm carving out new areas of my spaces for more collection space. And I know that there are a lot of other folks out there who are even more jammed up than I am right now with their collections. So something big and long with propellers that, you know, you're probably going to have to keep in one position as it's displayed, it could be a challenge. Maybe you want something that's more compact, like, you know, the his tank's big, but it's relatively, you know, what is it, 16 inches or something like that. I don't know, but you could also fit several figures on top of that and in it. So it might be more challenging to display the Dragonfly, but it's doable. It's not like that Black Series TIE Fighter. That thing looked like it would be hard to display. I feel like a Dragonfly would have its challenges, but I don't think that they are challenges that are too difficult to overcome. Okay, con number two. Even though it's pretty big, it only has actual seating for 2 figures. Now you can put a guy or two on the little landing things or whatever, the little sides, but or hanging off this, hanging onto the side, I should say. But it really is only suited or meant to carry 2 characters. So we'll see. I'm sure that if they went with Dragonfly, they would come up with some cool stuff to really make it a great package. But like I said a little bit ago, I think for these HasLabs, it is nice for the vehicle to be able to accommodate several figures. And with those cons in mind, this is still my number one. Okay, number one on the list, and I actually think this is pretty great too, the Snowcat. So, pros, I have 3. By the size, its shape, number of characters it holds, I feel like the Snowcat is actually a better analog to the His Tank than the Mobat or anything else on this list. I think it would make a similar footprint on the shelf. So if you figured out space for your His Tank, just do that again for the Snowcat. And I think that would create good parity. Number 2, the original version of the Snowcat was an all-around fun toy. It had missile launchers, the ski missiles. They were awesome. Between the driver and passenger seats, pegs on the sides and back, you could fit around 6 or 8 figures on the Snowcat. And then number three, all the unlocked tiers could get us up to 4 characters, like we saw with the His Tank. I could see the HasLab version with all tiers coming with 3 or 4 Arctic themed characters. So that would be a great way to build out like a Arctic sub team on your shelf. But one con, I think it's a solid choice. Even though my personal wish is for Dragonfly. The biggest issue I see here with this Snowcat really is that I could see some people not really wanting to have such a specialized vehicle as the HasLab, meaning something that is specifically for a particular environment, like the Arctic or a boat or something like that. I feel like something that drives just regular terrain, regular driving through the city or whatever, or flying through the air. I feel like those are probably would be more popular. But if it needs to really be in the Arctic or out in the water to really look like it fits, that might be a sticking point for some folks. Maybe. Okay, well, with all that said, that's the end of this video. I've gone on long enough, so I'm going to jump. And if you like this and you would like to see more, or you would like to see some action figure photography, whatever, hit subscribe. And you can also visit 1134comics.com for action figure photos and some web comics, and check out the shorts on the channel with some action figure photography. Okay, until next time, everybody, have a good rest of your day.